I currently have 55 videos on my channel. What do you think are my personal top 5 scariest paranormal experiences? For those of you who've been following my channel this whole time and have seen all the videos, first of all, God bless you. Secondly, make up your list. What's your top 5? And then let me know in the comments below. We're all different, we all have varying opinions, and I am dying to know which of my personal experiences so far has frightened you the most. As for myself, you're about to find out which 5 of the 55 experiences posted on my channel have scared me the most. For my top 5, 3 out of the top 5 deal with the demonic. So you're gonna want to stay tuned and find out which of the demonic experiences I cover on my channel made it into my top 5 and what is number 1. Hi, I'm Nefer Kefri, your hostess with the Ghostess, and you're watching True Tales of the Paranormal. Now on to the countdown. Number 5. Seen my first ghost. Now, this was my first full-length video posted to my channel, and it was my first almost full-body apparition of a ghost that I saw with my own 2 eyeballs. Now, what frightened me the most about this experience wasn't so much the ghost, and the real fright didn't come until much later. Because, as you're going through the experience, your brain is trying to compute what's going on, because what is happening, what you're experiencing, does not fall within the parameters of your reality when you deal with the paranormal. So, in telling this story again and again to family and friends over the years, what truly has frightened me the most, it wasn't the pirate ghost I saw in my hotel room in Plymouth, England. No. What frightened me the most was I guess to be about a 5-minute span of time where I cannot account for the time at all. When I first saw the ghost, I was taking a bath. I was in a bathtub, very old bathtub, the kind with the feet, and the high sides. It takes you a few seconds just to get out of the bathtub. Plus, my view of the room, I was looking through the open bathroom door, straight across the bed, to a little dais at the end of the hotel room where there were 2 chairs pointed diagonally at a little table in between them. Outside was a window that overlooked Plymouth Harbor. One of the chairs had moved and I didn't realize it, and it was now facing me dead on. And within this chair was what I can only describe in the original video and over all these years as a pirate ghost. Now, what happens next is anybody's guess, because all I can tell you with 100% certainty is that somehow, some way, I got out of that bathtub. Now remember, I was fully soaked. I'd even been washing my hair, so even my hair was wet. I was fully soaked, head to toe. Somehow, some way, I not only managed to get my pajamas on my wet body, and you know how difficult it is to get clothes on when your body's wet, but this room, for some bizarre, unknown reason, had 5 locks on the interior of the door. Yeah, you had the lock for the doorknob. You had the deadbolt, which was directly above the doorknob, which is typical for hotel rooms. Then you had another deadbolt looking lock. And then you had 2 chain locks. Well, I had done up all those locks thinking they were there for a good reason, you know, and I'd been traveling alone. So before I took my bath, I made sure all those locks were, you know, engaged. So not only in like within 5 minutes did I get out of the bathtub, get my pajama tops and my pajama bottoms on, I undid all 5 locks, threw open the door, ran down a very short alcove, because this hotel room was not like the others. It wasn't along a main hall. It was off a main hall in a little alcove. That in itself was weird. But it offered me a great view of Plymouth Harbor. And everyone in my tour group had come to my room to take their pictures of the harbor because I was the only one with a direct view of it. And at that time, there was a nuclear sub parked in the harbor. So it made for a really cool picture. Anyway, I don't know how I did it. Fully wet body, got all my pajamas on, got those 5 locks undone, threw the door open, ran down that short alcove to the main hallway, then darted left because there were stairs down there, and I knew my friends were in a room almost directly beneath mine. I was on the 4th floor. They were on the 3rd. Everyone in the group was on the 3rd floor. I was the only one housed up on the 4th floor. And I go running down that flight of stairs to their room, and then next thing I know that I can remember with any congruent memory whatsoever, I'm pounding on their door with both my fists, saying, it's gonna get me, open the door. And my friend throws open the door. He and his wife are there, their mouths hanging open. He grabs me, he pulls me in the room, slams the door shut, and then they ask me what happened, if I'm okay. And I proceed to tell them. I don't know. As many times as I have gone over this experience, as many times as I have told it, I had this experience in July of 1989. It's been a minute, you know what I'm saying? I cannot for the life of me figure out, how did I get out of the bathtub so quickly? How did I even get my pajamas on over my wet body? I mean, my friends, they handed me a towel immediately. They could see I was still wet and my clothes were just clinging to my body. How was I able to cover myself? Have you ever tried putting on a pajama top over your body and your whole body front and back is wet? It'll roll all up in the back and you can't get it down. You know what I'm saying? I've tried it. After the fact, I tried it. And it took me too long. I could eventually get it done, but it just took a while. Now, perhaps the fright of the situation skewed my sense of time, and I was actually struggling with my pajama top and bottom a lot longer than I assumed I was, but in all honesty, it did not seem like that. And so for me, I've always had the issue of the feeling of missing time. I really don't know what happened. And I don't remember opening all those locks at all. And there were 5 of them. That not only takes a bit of time, it takes effort and it takes, conscious application of your dexterous skills to get those different kind of locks undone. And then to throw open the door, run down the alcove, take a left to the stairs, run down the flight, and get to my friend's room. So to this day, I cannot tell you how I got those locks opened. And I have zero memory of opening the locks, throwing open the door, running down the alcove. My memory kind of kicks in when I'm about halfway down that flight of stairs. I can remember from that point onward. So why can't I remember anything from when I was attempting to open the door to when I was halfway down that flight of stairs? That is what truly frightens me about my first nearly full-bodied apparition. Now we continue with number 4. Demon in the closet. As many of you know, I make no secret of what I do for a living. I'm a spiritual light worker. I help people with reading tarot cards, offering spiritual guidance that way, and also performing what I call positive energy transmissions, which is basically like spells, but they're not really spells because I use prayer and candles to direct the energy to them. Well, I had a client who lived up in Canada who had a major, major problem with a demon that became attached to him because he was drunk at a party and they started messing with a Ouija board. So he brought something home with him. So I started doing positive energy transmissions for him, and in performing that candle work and working on exorcising his home of that entity, somehow, some way, that entity transferred itself from his home to mine. And it ended up taking up residence inside the closet of my office, which is the room where I perform all my candle work and all my readings. Now, as luck would have it, I was not the only witness that there was something in the closet. My daughter at the time was in high school, and she would hear noises in the closet, like there was something large in there, like shifting its weight and maybe kind of like rubbing up against the walls or the door or something, or the few clothes that were in there. It was mainly a storage closet, so I had more things in there than clothing. And she would have friends come over. Now, her bedroom was right across the second floor landing from my office. So when her friends would come over, they'd have to, pass my office on their left, make a right, and go into her room to hang out, And as they would get up there, they would hear knocks coming from inside that closet. They would hear something large like shifting its weight in the closet. And sometimes they would hear scratching sounds. My daughter heard them too. My dog and my cat, who loved to hang out in my office all the time, refused to enter the room once that thing took up residence in the closet. They would not go in there. And my cat, he'd come when I was in there working, and he would lay across the threshold of my office. He wouldn't lie down inside the door of my office. He would lie down right outside the door of my office, across the threshold, and look in on me. And he'd watch me the entire time I was in there. I really think he was protecting me. I really do. Well, this thing was in my closet for several months. And I do my Christmas shopping very early in the year. I tend to get it done around September, sometimes October. And I would hide the presents in that closet because my husband had no interest in going in that closet. And my daughter never figured out where I put the gifts. She always thought I put them up in the attic. Anyway, I had her gifts in there, and this thing decides to go in there and take up residence, right? And the weeks are going by. It's getting closer and closer to Christmas. And I'm realizing I've got to get this thing out of the closet in time to get my kids' gifts out of the closet. So right when I realized it had gone into that closet, I had used a combination of herbs and sea salt to lock spiritually and energetically, to lock the door to my closet, to keep that thing in there. So it had been locked in there with herbs and salt and a lot of prayers, and now I had to deal with it. That's the part I left out of the original video, because to this day, it still upsets me. And it gives me the shivers. Even though that thing's long gone, it still gives me the shivers, and it feels like my hair over here is trying to stand up or something. Anyway, I called on Jesus and I called on St. Michael. I explained the situation. Of course, they already knew, but you know, it helps you mentally and emotionally to also give voice to the situation. And I said, listen, I need this thing out. I need it out now. And when it came out, I felt a rush of energy come at me. And it was like, if you've ever been caught in a really severe windstorm that's so strong it can almost knock you backward, that's what it felt like. Like the world's largest floor fan pointed at you and it's blowing you back. And I was actually, as I was saying the prayers and exorcising this thing from the closet, I was actually leaning back like this because the energy was pushing me back, pushing me back. The door to the closet was still closed. I hadn't opened it. I just had made a little space in the herbal and salt barrier I had made to give that thing an exit route. So here I am being pushed back by what I know is demonic energy as Christ and Michael push this thing out of the closet. And I could feel it rush past me. Just this big swoosh. And the nearest I can compare it to was years and years ago when my daughter was a baby. We were on the beach. I was holding her. This wave came in, took me by surprise, and lifted me up, knocking me off of my feet and pushing us both several feet further into the inland onto the beach. That's what it felt like. I didn't get lifted up, but it's like my body felt like it was being pushed up, even though my feet never left the floor, but it still had that same sensation as the thing rushed past me, got out the door. My dog liked to sleep at the top of the stairs just outside my office. So she was there. This thing comes rushing out. I heard a horrendous squeal come from her, like she had been like hit by a car or something. And she flew down the stairs, and I could never figure out if she was trying to chase the thing or was just so scared she didn't know where else to go. She goes flying the stairs. This thing, I could hear it or somehow sense the energy wrap itself around the base of the stairs, and instead of flying out the front door, which was right there at the bottom of the stairs, it makes a turn and goes around the base of the stairs and out through the door that led into our garage. And then I hear this loud crash from the garage, and it was horrendous. It sounded like one of those garage doors just came down to the ground. And we have a 2-car garage, so we have 2 garage doors. And I was just like, oh no. I go running downstairs. My dog's at the garage door, you know, fully alerting and barking. I'm like, you're going to go out there and take a look at this because I can't do it. And I open the door. She goes running out there. And to this day, we have a dent in one of the garage doors where something had pushed so hard against it with such force, it dented the door outward a bit from the inside. That's not from my car, and it's not from my husband's car. It's from that demon I pushed out of the house with the help of Christ and Michael. Well, they did all the pushing. I just called on them for help to do it, to get it, finally get it done. And that is number 4. Now we enter the top 3 at number 3, and we get Ouija boards. What could go wrong? I think from my number 4 experience, you know what can go wrong. And that's about the same thing that went wrong in this experience. This experience I share with a childhood friend of mine. And she and I decided just after Elvis had died, we were going to try to contact him on her mother's Ouija board. And we even told her mom that that's what we were going to do. And her mom was like, oh, yeah, okay, good luck, girls. Let me know if he shows up. And she just laughed. Because, most people don't believe in the Ouija board. And the people who manufacture the Ouija board have pretty much convinced most people it's just a game. Just a game. Just a harmless game. And it's marketed that way, which is the height of irresponsibility. But I digress. So here we are, a couple of preteens, or we could have been 13, 14, I don't really remember. And we're playing around with it in her sun porch, which was attached to their garage in their backyard. And all of a sudden, the screen door that leads into the screened-in porch flies open and slams shut. Yeah, we knew right away this was not good. And we started screaming. We ran out that same door into the house screaming. And her mother's like, what happened? What happened? And we tell her, and she laughs and she goes, you girls really shouldn't play with that stuff. You know that, right? She should have told us that before we went out there with the Ouija board, because what happened afterwards is the really scary part. And I left it out of the original video because it's really not my own story to share. That story belongs to my friend and her family. But my friend and I are no longer in touch. I can't find her. So I figure I'm going to tell it since I don't mention any names. No harm, no foul, right? So this is what happened. After that event, she began to see a dark figure in their home out of the corner of her eye. Eventually, her mother began to see it. Then her two older brothers. Now, as far as I know, her father never saw it. It's like in the horror movies, The mother and the kids are all having the experiences, and the dad's sitting there going, y'all are crazy. You know that, right? You all are crazy. There's nothing here. It was that type of situation. Well, they had a 2-story house, but it was one of those split levels where you've got your full first story on the first floor. Most of the rooms are there. And then upstairs is like a 2-part loft. So her brother's 2 bedrooms were upstairs. They went off to college, and when they were in college, she, her mom, and her dad were the only ones living in the house. They had had a dog who had passed away, so they didn't even have any pets at the time. Just the 3 of them in the house. They would hear movement up there. They would hear stomping and clomping and furniture moving. Even the father would hear it. He'd go up there to check it out. Nothing would be amiss. Everything looked exactly as it had been left. Meanwhile, the shadowy apparition continued to make itself known to my friend and to her mother. And one day, her mom was in the kitchen where she spent most of her time. She was a fabulous baker. Oh my gosh, she made the best cakes. And she was in the kitchen baking something, getting it out of the oven. So whatever this was, I assume it was a cake since that's mainly what she made. She pulls it out of the oven, so of course it's red hot, right? And she feels from behind her a pair of hands go up around her waist. Just the hands, like they're going like this from behind to her waist. There was no one else in the house. It was just her. and she threw the baking sheet that had the cake or whatever it was on top of it up, and when it came down, it landed on her chest. She was wearing some sort of a V-neck blouse or something that was kind of low, and it burned her chest. And that's a scar she carried the rest of her life. Yeah, and it was from that thing that came through the Ouija board when two dumbass kids decided to play with it. And that thing remained in my friend's house for the remainder of the time that home was owned by her parents. They eventually moved out when all three of the kids were out of the home, when my friend, who was the last to leave because she was by far the youngest, they moved to a nearby town, sold that house. I've always wondered, is that thing still there? Is it still bothering the people who live in that home? We'll never know. Well, we're getting there. Number 2, the demonic haunting that forever changed me. I experienced this in Corpus Christi, Texas, when I was hired to go out to this family's home to rid it of whatever had taken up residence in their home that had no business being there. Now, I have a set number of questions I always ask a prospective client who wishes to hire me for a house cleansing. And I just assume they're going to answer truthfully because there aren't really any self-incriminating questions. Well, she didn't tell me the whole story, because her version of things were, yeah, this thing has tried to get violent with me. I've gotten hurt from it. And that was the worst of what she would let on. And I thought, okay, going in, I thought we're most likely dealing with something demonic. I went in fully armed, spiritually armed. And on the way to the store to get the last of my supplies for that cleansing, I had my own encounter with that demonic entity in my car. It was in the back seat of my car. So I knew going to the house, I knew this one was probably going to be a doozy. And I was praying we would be successful in only one visit. Because when you're dealing with a really serious, extremely frightening, and potentially harmful case like this one, man, you do not want to go out there a second time. You know what I'm saying? You want to get it done the first attempt. Because if there's a second attempt, things will amp up. That's how it always is. So I let my friends know. And so we were all fully prepared. Or were we? Both of my friends were attacked. In particular, my girlfriend. She went there with her boyfriend, who was our photographer. And my girlfriend got so sick, she could not carry on. She was supposed to be my second. She was supposed to carry on if I should happen to get psychically attacked and not be able to continue with the cleansing. Instead, it ended up being just me and her boyfriend, the photographer. They both had to leave the home vomiting several times during the cleansing. I myself, thankfully, even though I felt really nauseated, I never actually got the urge to vomit. And I just kept calling on Jesus and Michael the whole time I was there. And I was like, I call upon the blood of Christ to protect me. I call upon Archangel Michael, who drove Lucifer out of heaven, to protect me and keep me safe, and do not allow this thing to affect me in any way. Because I knew I had to finish this one all by myself, because the photographer had no experience in this type of work. He was just really good with his cameras. And he used infrared film and some other kind of film, to catch stuff that wouldn't appear in a normal photo with normal camera film. So we were doing, I was going to start the cleansing, and the woman's daughter takes me aside. It was a couple and their older daughter, and their daughter was like around in her early 20s, 21, 22. The daughter takes me aside, says, "Can I speak with you in private, please?" I said, "Sure." So we went into another room. She shuts the door. She proceeds to tell me she thinks this thing is an incubus because it would come during the night and attempt to do with her in the bed. You get the picture. And I was just like, whoa, I had never run across anything like that in my own experience. I've done a lot of research. I've read about it. So peripherally, I knew how to shift my focus for this cleansing to deal with something like that. But emotionally and mentally, I was ill prepared because I really didn't think this entity had taken things that far. But this is what comes of a client who does not truthfully answer all your questions. If she had done that, I would have known going in, and we would have had a whole different situation, and more than likely my two friends would not have gotten so sick, and more than likely things would have gone smoother. In the end, we were successful in the first visit, but as a result, with house cleansings being the most lucrative part of my business by a long shot, that is the last house cleansing I've ever done in person or ever will do. I flat out refuse, and I tell them I perform candle work. I can do long distance cleansings with candle work. I am not going to step on the property. And people have offered me thousands of dollars to come get the thing out of their house, to go in person and get it out. It's like, nope. It is not worth it to me. I don't care how much money you give me. It's not worth it. So I don't do in-person house cleansings anymore. I do them long distance, and they have been successful. Now with the long distance ones, sometimes I have to do them 2, a couple times, even 3 times, but the thing always leaves. So that, my friends, is number 2. Now, of all my experiences on this channel, which one do you think is my number 1? What's your number 1? Let me know in the comments below which of my experiences has frightened you the most. I would love to know. I'll tabulate them and post them in the community post of which one y'all think is the scariest. I think it'd be a fun little experiment. As for my personal number 1, to this day, the absolute most frightening paranormal experience I ever had occurred one day when I was at work in a New Age shop in Corpus Christi, Texas, when, without any prep whatsoever, and most importantly, without any experience up until that point in time, I was called upon by forces beyond my control to perform my first ever demonic exorcism. It was just a typical day, nothing out of the ordinary. This young lady walks in asking for a card reading. I was the assistant manager and also one of the readers. And since the owner was there, she manned the front while I took the young lady to the reading room, which was separated from the rest of the shop in a little room in the back. And she starts telling me, I've had this thing following me since I was like about 5 years old. I've been to witches, I've been to mediums, psychics, and even priests. No one can get rid of him. And I'm just like, oh, wow. And she says, I need to know, what does he want? Maybe if I knew what he wanted, I could then do something about that and get rid of him. And I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, as long as this thing isn't a demon. I didn't want to tell her that. She was already scared enough. And I had no idea what she had experienced in her life as a result of this entity being attached to her. And also in the time span we're given to do a card reading, which is 30 minutes or an hour, and she did pay for the hour reading, we still wouldn't have had enough time to go into all of her experiences with this thing so I could then ascertain exactly what we were dealing with. I just assumed, based upon her demeanor, her earnestness, that it was going to be the worst of the worst. So I was assuming demonic from the get-go. So I lay out her cards, right? If you know anything about tarot, or if you've seen horror movies that feature a tarot reader, you know one of the worst cards in the deck is the Death card. Another awful card to receive is the Devil card. Another bad card is the Tower. And then we also have the Ten of Swords, which is a guy stabbed in the back 10 times in a pool of blood. You know, these are awful dark cards. Had I ever seen them ever appear all in one reading? Oh, heck no, not ever. It's very rare to even see two of them in a reading. And when I do readings, at the time I was using the Celtic Cross Spread, which is a reading that uses 10 cards. There's 78 cards in the tarot deck. So, you know, do the math. What are the odds that you would get the Death card, the Devil card, the Tower card, and the Ten of Swords, all within the same reading? I don't know what the odds are. I'm not good at math, but I'm sure they're pretty high. This girl got all the cards. And as I was laying down the reading, laying down her cards for the reading, I'm looking down at them going, am I dreaming? You know how you get into these surreal situations in your life to where you're kind of thinking, oh, maybe I'm having a dream and I just think I'm awake. I've had that happen to me. Has it happened to you? Let me know below. I thought this was one of these weird situations, right? Now, we always keep a drink on the table, you know, because your throat gets dry when you're talking, you know, so I had my water there, my bottled water. I said, excuse me a minute. I took a few drinks of the bottled water, and I was like, I can feel it go down my throat. I can taste it. And I was like, no, I'm awake. And I looked down at the cards, and I'm like, holy shit. You know, I didn't say it, but she took one look at me, and she goes, that's the worst reading you've ever seen, isn't it? And I'm like, oh, what makes you say that? And you have all these dark colored cards on the table. And she's like, because that's what everyone tells me. Get chills. I get chills. And I'm like, yes, it is. She says, yeah. And you know what? Same cards keep coming up every time. And the gist of her message in the reading, this thing wouldn't leave her alone until she was dead. Now, why it wanted her dead, I have no clue. I don't know. I'm thinking someone sent it to her. I'm not sure about that because she said she started to sense him when she was only 5 years old. What could a 5-year-old do to invite the demonic into their life? You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm assuming someone sent this to her. And why would they send it to a 5-year-old child? That's just so despicable and evil. But there are a lot of despicable and evil people in the world, unfortunately. And then what happened, as I proceeded to interpret the cards for her, I saw her eyeballs roll to the back of her head. her eyes went completely white. I've seen that in movies. I've never seen that in real life. I didn't even really know a person could do that in real life. And then she fell onto the floor and proceeded to convulse. And I was just like, is she having an epileptic seizure? I don't know, you know? Now, when we did readings, we would have a single St. Michael candle always burning in the room. We always, prayed to him for protection and keep that candle lit. We light it first thing in the morning and just keep it lit all day and snuff it out at night when we would close down the shop. And for some reason that I still cannot figure out to this day, we did not have one in there. Or if we did, maybe it had just gone out. I can't remember now, but I had to go get another one. Here she is convulsing on the floor, and I'm thinking, this woman is possessed. I've seen enough horror movies. I think I know demonic seizures when I see them. Plus, I had a friend in high school who was an epileptic, and her epileptic seizures didn't look like this. So I go running out into the shop, and I had to go to the main room in the front to grab a candle. I look around and there's nobody up there, and I'm yelling, I need help, I need help. I've got a woman in here, she's convulsing. Someone call 911 right now, call 911. She's having convulsions. No answer. And there's no sound in the shop. Now, when this young girl and I had gone into the reading room, my boss had been there, another reader had been there, and there had been about 2 or 3 customers milling about. I fully expected to see at least my boss and my coworker out there, and they weren't there. And as I ran back toward the reading room to try to help this young woman, I was yelling to the far back room because that's where we had our lunches, that's where the restrooms were in my boss's office. I figured they'd gone back there because no one was up front. And sometimes we'd all end up in the back, doing whatever. And I was yelling, I need help, call 911, call 911. This girl's having convulsions. No answer. And I ran the few feet extra down there just to take a look. There was no one in the lunchroom. They weren't in the bathrooms. Both the doors were open. There was no one in my boss's office. I was all alone in the shop with this girl. And I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out where everyone could have gone. And then I had to go back into the reading room, armed with only my faith, the name of Christ, and that St. Michael candle. And just blurting out stuff I had heard in movies, because prior to this, I had no experience with exorcising demons at all. Talk about a trial by fire. But that thing, the moment it left her, I knew, because her eyes had rolled back forward. Also, her eyes had changed color. Her eyes rolled back forward. They were their normal color. And I felt this electrical current up and down my legs because I think that thing was trying to jump from her to me. And I wasn't having it. I told it, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you. Get out and go back to the whatever pit of hell you came from. And then all of a sudden, the energy just settled. Everything felt fine. The girl sat up. And she was kind of rubbing her head like this. And she was like, that thing always gives me a headache. Are you okay? This girl, who I thought was dying, is asking me if I'm okay. And I'm just like, are you okay? Do you want me to call an ambulance? She's like, no, it's okay. And she looks around and she kind of rubs her arms. And she looks up at me. She's still seated on the floor. And I'm kind of standing over her a little bit. But I'm getting down into a kneeling position because I'm going to help her to get up. And she says, he's gone. And I'm like, how do you know? And she says, because I can always feel him. I feel him 24/7. I don't feel him anymore. You got rid of him. And I'm thinking to myself, no effing way. Not without having any experience. But it goes to show you, when you have faith and you call on the strongest energy in the universe, the one energy to which all other energies bow in allegiance, and you call on St. Michael, you can deal with anything. And that is my number one most frightening paranormal experience, the day I exorcised a demon without any prior experience. And those, my friends, are my top 5 scariest paranormal experiences of my life. As of this date of recording this video, because who knows what can happen in the future. Hopefully nothing as awful as that. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed already, and to my 800 plus subscribers, thank you, thank you, thank you. I never thought this channel would ever get past like 20, 25 people. I appreciate you all so much. And until next time, this is Neferkefri, your hostess with the ghostess, wishing you a blessed day ahead.